Today's episode is called Feelings Aren't Facts, and it kind of ties into something we've talked a lot about before, about our thoughts leading to feelings, and how you navigate all of these little complexities in a way that makes sense to you, because you can really get sucked up into something and go down the wrong path. Kat, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I really like this topic. Feelings aren't facts,
Yeah.
But if you've ever tried to parent a child or me, you will find that, a lot of times that like my feelings really do seem like they're facts.
Sure.
It's you can kind of run away with them. So how do you handle that? Like, give us some background for all of us.
Well, I think one of the most impactful things we've learned on our healing journeys, on our personal development journeys, is that your thoughts create your feelings. And we've joked plenty of times and we're like, well, then let's just change our thoughts and it'll change our feelings. And by that definition, anytime we are upset or sad or having some of those less preferred feelings, we should just be able to think a new thought. And it's not as easy as that, but it's so helpful to know where our feelings come from. You have to have a thought, whether it's a happy thought, a worrisome thought, a curious thought, in order to feel something. But what happens when our thoughts aren't right? They're not correct. There are so many times when we guess at a situation. I'm thinking about our youngest daughter, and let's say, we're talking about fifth grade girls, right? And so when she comes home and she's like, oh, I feel like these girls are talking about me, they looked at me that way. Like, that's a real simplistic example of saying, like, she thinks these other girls are talking about her. It might be true, but it might not be true. And all of those thoughts can swirl around in her head and create feelings of worry, anxiety, inadequacy. And so it's really important to know the root cause of our feelings, because yes, we should examine our feelings, but we should also take a step back and say, is the thought I just had helpful to me? Does it serve me? Is that thought going to make me feel better? Is that thought making me feel worse? And do I know that to be true?
That's a really good point. I think when we are in that loop, like in the case of our youngest, when you have that that moment, right? It's really hard to get out of it. And if you really do have to train yourself to start thinking otherwise. But before we can get to that state, before we can get to the quote unquote fixing part of it, we need to start understanding ourselves a little bit better. And I think that's something that you start to introduce to children as they're younger, and to adults too. It's a dimmer switch. Yeah. It's not an on or off. I've personally been working on this because I have lately I've been finding myself prone to a little more I'll say negative thoughts, like you see somebody whispering something to another person, you think it's negatively about you. And where in the past I would maybe not have noticed that. And then I went from noticing that happening, that, somebody was doing that. And then I noticed that I was noticing it. So it's a little meta as far as that goes, but that's kind of the awareness that you need to bring to those kind of situations of going, okay, this person's whispering something into somebody else's ear. It's likely not about me, but isn't it interesting how I'm arrogant enough to think that everybody's always talking about me everywhere I go? And I kind of make a joke of it with myself just to bring humor in, because these negative thoughts hate humor. They really do. But the negative thoughts create negative feelings, and then you start walking around feeling negative, and you have to come to the realization at some point, if you want to move forward, that these feelings aren't your facts. They're just, there's something there's a story, they're a narrative in your brain. And what would you say, like, what was your first kind of revelation with this, and how did you start to shift?
Well, actually, I had a pretty serious revelation with it. And I take you back all the way to where the twins were born. And I had serious postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. And what comes along with that are intrusive thoughts. The intrusive thoughts are like the best example I can think of thoughts that aren't facts.
Mhm.
And, we might have that. I remember being a little kid, like in church, is like, oh, what if I screamed right now? Like, what would happen? It's like you have these intrusive thoughts that are like, do it. And you're like, no, I don't want to do that. And, I'm even like a little awkward saying that. I want to make a joke and be like, just me. But I know it's not just me. I know that intrusive thoughts are incredibly commonplace and they often go along with people who have anxiety, right? And so when the twins were babies, I used to have all these intrusive thoughts like, oh my gosh, like I'd go and work at a coffee shop for an hour and I'd be like, they're hurt. They're this. I need to call and check on them. And so I'd be getting all these thoughts that they're in pain or they're hurting. Or you get exasperated and you have this thought and you're like, oh, like I can't do this parenting thing right now. And you have all of these thoughts and that's not necessarily true, right? These are not true thoughts. These thoughts aren't facts. These thoughts come intrusively, meaning they come from seemingly out of nowhere during low points and points of stress. And so first of all, just the self-awareness, talking to other people about it, realizing that you're not the only one goes a long way in helping you to realize like maybe don't trust every single thought that comes into your head, right? Because we're all naturally going to worry about things.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, what is it? We have 90,000 thoughts a day, and like 95% of those thoughts are kind of subconscious, just on auto repeat. So
Mm-hmm.
when you have those thoughts, I think a lot of us, thank you for your vulnerability too and sharing that. Because I think those are the conversations that we need to have. Like I know myself this week, it's the month of the holidays. I'm here and I have felt very alone. But the
Yeah.
funny part is that I'm not alone. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm alone physically in my place, but I've got so many friends that I like. I've got good people around me. I have people that care for me. So it starts to become that. I kind of call it like a bully. That voice that kind of comes in
Yeah.
with the intrusive thoughts, the harmful thoughts of
Sure.
kind of coming in and going, well, you don't have friends. It's like, well, why? Because there's nobody here right now. Like, what's your proof of that? And, you just,
Right.
but you have to recognize that you are not your thoughts.
Right.
And I think that's a really big thing to start to realize is that, wow, you're not the thought. You're the person observing the thought.
Right.
And I just finished doing a book on Audible called How to Train Your Mind. And it's a really quick, because I'm trying to get to my 50 books by the end of the year on
We're
this
almost
challenge that we've
there.
done. I'm at 49. I'm almost there. And as we're doing this, I'm listening to it, and it's he breaks meditation down into this very easy idea of like, you just pay attention to your breath, and when the dummy thoughts come in, or like the intrusive thought or whatever that thought comes in that takes you away from your breath, you just kind of go, huh, I'm thinking about monkeys right now. That's so interesting. Back to my breath. And
Yeah.
I'm worried about what I'm going to make for supper tonight. Back to my breath. And in doing that, I kind of like, I've meditated for a long time, but it was such a nice, simple way of putting things to remind yourself that you are not the thought. You're the person observing it. And you can't control all the thoughts that come into your head. Nobody can. And I think we have this story that like, oh, if I have this thought about the kids being sick or something else, it
Yeah.
must be real. And so we have to start training ourselves to kind of poke holes in our own thinking, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Exactly. And I can think of a bunch of different scenarios just to try to relate to people and show them how these things happen. I mean, think about being at work and maybe your, boss comes in and he doesn't say hi to anyone and he goes into his office and shuts the door. Well, your thought might be like, oh no, did I upset my boss? Or he must be mad about the presentation I gave yesterday, which showed like less than stellar results, but it could be nothing about you. Like someone could have took a parking spot and he was just in a bad mood,
He could have
but
stubbed his toe,
it's
man.
what?
He said he could have stubbed his toe or anything
I
else. You're right.
know that hurts, stubbing your toe. It could have been anything. And the thing is we are all very egocentric by design. Our brains want us to survive. They are designed to perceive threats. This goes back to our, caveman ancestors who lived in a very different world than us. And we are always monitoring for threats at a subconscious level to make sure that we are okay. So you're at work, you're doing your job, your safety and survival is based on your paycheck. So you are constantly scanning, trying to make sure you're doing a good job, that your boss is happy with you, that things are going well. So the boss to come in to slam the door immediately, your thoughts think that. So in that moment, that's an anxiety spike. It's good to, like Andrew said, you can do this over time. You can train yourself to say, okay, self, well, that's an interesting thought. Let's take it a step back. In the history of me being at this job, has my boss typically been satisfied with my work? Yes. Did I give it my best yesterday? Like, am I satisfied with my performance? Yes. Can I read my boss's thoughts? No, I have not developed mind reading skills overnight. The thing is, none of us can read minds. We have no idea what anyone else is thinking. Some of us are pretty good at reading micro expressions and things like that. Andrew and I both are because we're highly sensitive people, but we don't actually know for sure what someone else is thinking, even if we can give it a good guess. And so you monitor those thoughts and you're able to sort of talk yourself off the ledge and say, look, thoughts aren't facts. There's no way I could know why my boss went in and shut the door like that. And I'm going to choose to like get back to my computer, get back to my work. And I'm going to choose to believe it has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to add to the anxiety. I'm not going to stress out my nervous system. I'm just going back. And of course, this takes a ton of like practice and training, but in an ideal world, you'd want to run your mind through that process to get yourself out of that anxiety hole.
Yeah, I like that. I know I'm like this, and I've talked to a lot of other people where they kind of run through the worst case scenarios of everything, right? And that goes back to like school days where you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go to school and they're going to say, I'm going to say this, they're going to say that, and then I'm going to say this and whatever. And then you replay all the things that happened from the day that you didn't do. And, you're training your brain in different ways there. But as we get older, we can try to train our brain a different way to kind of look back at that situation. So you go through the bad day at work, like you just said, you come home and, you think, how could I have thought better today? How could I have improved this thought? Not like been, pie in the sky thinking, but been able to kind of look at my boss and go, whatever is going on with him doesn't need to impact me and what I'm going on today. Just, I know you and I are, we're empaths, and we kind of, when somebody else says something, we feel it. So we have to really practice this. But when you're in a group setting or you're at work or wherever you are, and somebody is feeling a way that you don't want to feel, and you start to notice it's affecting you, pivoting is something that I will try to do. And if you're not familiar with pivoting, it's just really a brain thing. I always think of Friends, Ross moving the couch, pivot. Anyway, but you just start to switch a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And in doing that, it's like you gave a great example. Okay, well, I did everything I was supposed to yesterday, and this and that, and you start to kind of shift away from the thought that is really harming you because it's not making you feel good, and you're trying to train your brain to make yourself feel good more often than less. And as you do that and you take those steps towards it, you're going to be better at doing it. But just like anything else in life, you got to practice it. And practicing in real time is good, but it doesn't always yield the results you want right away. So you go back and you think, okay, the next time my child is melting down in the grocery store, I'm not going to think, that I'm the worst parent ever for, not giving in to them. I'm going to hold my own. I know that this is better in the long run. Whatever story somebody else might be telling about me may not actually be happening. I need to focus on what's right for me and what's right for my child in this moment, or whatever other story you come with. But again, it's easier said than done, but that's why you gotta, do the mental rehearsals and train your brain to go down different pathways, because you're going to be going down the pathways that you've always gone down unless you decide to change it.
No, it's exactly right. And I think these are all really good examples and really helpful things. And a big part of what we're talking about, what I haven't even said, is that we don't have control over what happens at all. Because I'm thinking like, oh, what are some other examples of thoughts I have? And like, we're talking about worst case scenarios, like when one of the kids like rides their bike to a friend's house or something. I'm always going to be like in mom mode, like, oh my gosh, I'm always like, okay, like give me a kiss goodbye. And okay, remember, look to the left, because the kid that rides the bike the most tends to forget to look to the left, when crossing the street. And
Right.
you just like send them off with like a hope and a prayer. Like, like there's not, my brain can go to a million worst case scenarios. I do this to you all the time when you're driving in the snow and I'm like, oh, okay, let me know when you get back home safely. I have no control. I can torture myself and have my brain go to all of these horrible worst case scenarios, or I can tell myself, your worst case scenarios are unlikely. There's no thoughts that you have can change any type of outcome. And thoughts and worries and feelings aren't facts. They're not facts.
No, they're
And
not.
I'm definitely prone to anxiety and worry, especially when it comes to the people I love. And I'm constantly talking myself off of a ledge, like thoughts aren't facts, thoughts aren't facts. It's hard though. But if you know that, just having awareness of it and knowing that you have some control over the thoughts that you have, you can stand outside of yourself theoretically and look at your thoughts and say, that's interesting. My brain just went to the worst case scenario. But so often people are walking around not realizing that they can be the observer of their minds and the observer of their thoughts, and that it can greatly impact how they feel about a situation. Does it make me feel better, and less worried about a mom that my thoughts aren't facts? Not really, but it gives me at least a sense of I don't know, like the smallest sense of peace. That's like what happens, and there's nothing I can do differently in this situation to change it. And thoughts that make me feel bad aren't going to help.
I like that. First of all, I think that it's true. Yeah, you're not going to think somebody else's distance changing, traveling into anything different. It's just not.
Right.
I would say that most of us are walking around unaware of the thoughts that we're thinking. And the idea of this episode, when we say feelings aren't facts, what we're really saying is you can't believe everything you think, because when you start to believe everything you think, you start to create feelings that may not serve you in a way that you want to grow into. So as you're trying to build yourself into the best version of yourself, and you're responding to the boss, that's your 5-year you, and you are growing, it's really important to what I want you to take away from this episode is a split second, and not even a split second, like a fraction of a second, where when you have a thought that doesn't serve you, that doesn't make you feel good, you identify that in a very short order, and you might not be able to do anything about it. Just notice it. Just go, wow, I am really worried about, the person I care about getting into a car accident or getting hurt. Wow, I'm really worried that I'm not going to be able to do this thing. Wow, I am really worried that, something bad is going to happen. Usually it's the bad things. But then I also want you to think sometimes of when you go to something good, because that's the other side of this, that, it's very easy for us to talk about the negative things, because that's the stuff that worries us. But what happens if we start paying attention to I just had a really good thought about this. I just thought about my kid and it made me smile. What was the thought there? And having that little moment, just rather than having this continuous flow of thoughts, I want you to just have that little space in between the reaction to the and the thought that goes, wow, I'm responding in a programmed way and I can change that. And you may not get to change it in that particular moment. You know, if somebody cuts you off in traffic and you react a certain way, you react a certain way. But just start bringing that reflection, that awareness in. And as you start to bring awareness into your daily thinking, you are able to start choosing better thoughts more proactively than you would be getting to the end of the day and going, being mean to yourself and saying, wow, I didn't do this and I wanted to. It's not about perfection. It's not even about getting it right once a day. It's just slowly changing the direction of your mind. And if you start to change your mind, just like, even if I could say 1% a day, but that's a lot. Even if you like have 10 new thoughts in a day that are like, wow, I did this, I changed my thinking on this, or I could observe it, you are breaking long withstanding patterns in your brain and you are creating new pathways and you just keep fostering that. And then it gets better. And suddenly, you're 5 years from now, you're sitting down with us at a conference and you're like, I used to be really negative, and then I started to just pay attention to those 10 thoughts, and then bit by bit, and now now I expect the good to happen rather than always fearing the worst. And I feel a lot better because of it. So
yeah, I love that. And really the main skill that we teach in our 5-week coaching program is we teach people how to look within themselves and discover what they really want and how they really want to live their life, who they want to be, and what they really think about the world around them. And a big part of that is examining all of the things and the societal norms and the, do this to make you happy, is to examine all of the thoughts that we're being fed by TV and magazines and, culture and family and, upbringing. All of the thoughts that we've been fed, we teach people how to examine all of those and to decide for themselves if those are things they want to believe, such as everybody has to go to college to be successful. That might be a thought that someone has. And if someone hasn't done that, they might have a feeling that they're not living up to their potential or that they're worthless. But we might, walk them through an exercise, and it turns out that their true feeling is that they love running their business. That didn't require them to go to college. It fulfills them. They get time with their family, and that fits their version of success. And sometimes kind of walking people through those things allows them to see themselves in a different light and honor their thoughts, which can help them choose better feelings about themselves and their situation that aren't bound by everyone else's opinions of what they should be doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think while you're touching on the coaching thing and this whole point of life and this thoughts becoming feelings and choosing better thoughts, what we're trying to do with you right now, dear listener, is to bring intentionality into your life. And we do that. You can book a clarity call with us. It's complimentary, and we enjoy meeting you and helping you get some clarity in your life. And in doing that, you are able to just brush away the clouds for a minute and go, oh, this is who I am. This is what I like to do. And then you can once you get clear on that, once you have clarity, then you bring intentionality into it and you start going, yeah, you know what? My purpose is to make people smile and to help people. And I don't need a job to do that. That doesn't have to necessarily be just in my job. It can be to anybody I pass on the street at any time. I think we give ourselves these labels where it's like, well, I have to build this big business based on my purpose. It's like, you don't. Most people don't. It's about finding that thing that is core in your values, getting clear on it, and then doing it with intentionality so that okay, this is how I show up in the world. This is what I'm here for. This is the gift I am giving to this world that I'm in. And I think a lot of times ego comes in and goes, well, it's not this big thing, but it's not, that's not how change happens. Change happens by small things at a time and doing it a little bit every day. And then suddenly you're doing it instead of like making time for it for 2 minutes, like you might with a meditation, as an example. Suddenly you're not just helping that one person at the grocery store at the end of your workday. You're starting to mentor somebody at work. You're starting to do these things inside and outside of your job and your family and your friends that just resonates with you in a way that helps others. But most importantly, while you're helping those people, you are helping yourself a million times more. And it's just this beautiful way of living that we want more people to engage in. That's why we do the podcast. That's why we do everything we do. It's because it feels good to us to help other people.
I love that. So if I could think of a few takeaways from people for this episode, our intention in creating this is to teach you that your feelings aren't facts. That's the overall big umbrella summary. And like we always say in every episode, the only thing we encourage you to do first is to build self-awareness. Everyone's different, right? So everyone maybe has those tougher feelings about different things. For example, some people might be struggling with their health, with the way they look in the mirror, with the way that they're treated at work, with their relationships, with their children. There are a number of different things. And so part of it is noticing your own feelings throughout the day. When do you feel good? When you're feeling good, oh, what was I just thinking about that made me feel good? Or when you're having like a lull in the day, or you feel like crying or something like that, it's what was I just thinking about? Once you know the cause of things and the thoughts behind the feelings, then we can examine the thoughts, and you can take that next step that 99.9% of people don't do. And that is to ask yourself, is that thought a fact? Is that thought true? Is the thing I'm worried about a reality, a possibility? Or is it something that is not a fact, that I'm just worried about, that I'm creating all this unnecessary stress from? So just, taking the time, kind of walking back in that thought process, I think can do a lot of good for people.
I think so too. Some 3 other quick things you can do when you are, we'll say, caught in the negative loop and you're just not able to pick, like, kind of, you've gotten to this feeling, and maybe that feeling has become more of a tone in your life on a daily basis that you know it's there, but you don't know how to shift. First of all, exercise helps. Go outside, get some fresh air, get some sun on you, go for a walk. It doesn't have to be this run or anything really intense, but get moving. You will feel better. It's just a physiology aspect of our being. Like, Kat and I both have rebounders because it's fun to jump up and down. I'm having so much fun. That's my glimmer, by the way. Anyway, the next thing you can do is just, make sure you've got enough water. Make sure you are doing like the nutrients in your body. If you don't have the right mixture, if you don't have I find as soon as I'm dehydrated, like my brain gets cloudy and everything gets harder. And the next thing that you can do that can really help you is connection. Reach out to somebody that can help you cheer up. And if you don't have somebody, watch something funny on Netflix and laugh out loud with nobody there, or if somebody's there. But those are 3 things that will help you shift your feelings right away. And again, we're not trying to make you go from, grumpy to euphoric. We're just trying to get you to go, shift over a little bit, one little bit at a time. And when you have these things in your habit stack, and when you have them in your toolkit, life gets a lot easier.
I love that. I think that's a good summary and good advice. So Andrew kind of said his glimmer, but if you're new here, glimmers are just fun little sparkly things that are making us happy or interesting that we like to share with you at the end of the episode to end on a high note. And so yours is your rebounder because you copied me and want to be like me.
I did copy you, and one day I will be as cool as you. But for today, I'm just going to have the rebounder to level up a little bit. How about you? What's yours?
Oh, man. So if you've listened to a couple episodes, you might have heard me have like thrifting glimmers. I love finding good things at the thrift store, and, as sort of like a little hobby on the side. Sometimes I sell things on eBay and things like that. I just randomly sold a pair of sunglasses on eBay that's been listed for months and months and months. And I think I sold them for $67. But it was perfect because that same day I went to pick up the last 2 Christmas gifts for the twins at the local toy store. And those last 2 gifts were $63. And so it was sort of like, I kind of got their last 2 Christmas gifts for free, because who knows, I'd had the sunglasses for years, never wore them, had it listed for months. And it was just like this surprise money that was the perfect amount. So that made my frugal heart happy.
I love that. I like that a lot. That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Hey, it's Andrew. Are you feeling stuck in your life right now, kind of not sure where to go or what your next steps are? We've created a coaching program for you to help you discover your path, and we call it 5 Weeks to Future You. So what you'll get is 2-to-1 coaching with Catherine and I over 5 weeks while we help you figure out what the next steps are in your life. We offer a complimentary call. You just have to go to 5yearyou.com to check it out and set up your call with us to see if we're a good fit. I know from my own experience that it is incredibly hard to do this on your own, and that's why we're offering these coaching calls. We're only going to work with 5 people at a time to make sure that we can give you the attention that you truly deserve. So head on over to 5yearyou.com to get started.
Hey guys, quick disclaimer. We're podcasters on the internet. If you need to seek professional help, please go see your healthcare professional.